Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. My name is Louis Mendes. Hope you guys are all well on your Thursday evening. On tonight's show, then, we will be gearing up for Saturday's home game with Huddersfield Town at the Valley. Joining me on this week's big match preview, first up, top right, is Mr. Nathan Miller. How you doing, Nath?
Hello, fellas. I see Mark's rocking the old yellow one in that Tom's absence when I was in sunny Oz, isn't he?
Yeah,
looks very smart.
That's very nice indeed. He does. And bottom of the screen there, already been introduced by Nathan, is Mark Newby. How you doing, Mark?
I'm good, mate. Yeah, I've put the yellow on for luck, really, because I didn't wear it last week and we lost.
Well,
so I put the yellow.
Finally, we can find someone to blame for last week's defeat over at Peterborough. We've drawn a line under that one already. We're already back on the promotion train anyway. So on tonight's show, then we'll be looking ahead to Saturday's lunchtime kickoff with Huddersfield Town. That gets an early one down at the Valley, 12:30. It's going to be on Sky, of course. We're going to hear from the Addicts boss, Nathan Jones, in a few moments' time. We're going to hear a little bit of a couple of the Nordic players who are going to join us over the weekend as well. Matt Svensson and Jonathan Johansson, among a quintet of Nordic players, including also Herman Hreidarsson, Martin Pringle and Klaus Jensen, who are coming to the Valley on Saturday. We're going to hear a tiny bit of audio from Svensson and Jade that the club have shared with us. Then we're going to share our favourite memories of those players, because 5 absolute quality players in there, all of whom represented us in the Premier League. And yeah, I thought maybe we could share some of our memories. We'll look ahead again to the game on Saturday from a Huddersfield point of view. We've got Steve Downs from the West Yorkshire Football Show who's going to join us. And yeah, any questions you've got for us as well, let us know in the chat. We've got plenty of time tonight if you want to have a conversation about anything ahead of Saturday's game. You can email us, studio@charltonlive.co.uk. You can tweet us at Charlton Live, or you can head over to the live comment on the YouTube section and say your piece in there. Give us your questions. We'll try and give you some answers. Nave, just before we hear from the Addicts boss, then somebody was mentioned there. We lost last weekend. Not a feeling that we're used to at the moment. Makes top 2 difficult. 8 points off the top 2 again. Not impossible, but very difficult. I'm probably going to have to win the rest of our games. How are we sort of feeling going into this one? I mean, if top 2 is almost out of reach at the moment, but playoffs are looking very good, I guess it's just about building that momentum again between now and the end of the season.
Yeah, exactly that, mate. I mean, yeah, it was disappointing to lose. Obviously, no one likes to lose, but said it all along, really. Just focus on that next game. I mean, until we're mathematically certain that we've got a playoff place, my next thought is then, well, can we be at home second leg? That's my next aim. And if we get that over the line early, then I'll start looking at second. But yeah, it's not impossible. But this is what I mean when we said before, when we start trying to predict in games and saying, we're going to win this one and draw this one, I don't think many people would have had us down to lose on Saturday. So it just makes the whole thing pointless doing it. But yeah, so we've got some difficult fixtures. It's a good thing, in my opinion, that we're still playing a lot of teams in and around us, because you're sort of gaining points on others. So it's just about Saturday, mate, and just taking each game as it comes. And then wherever we finish, we finish. I mean, I'm confident it'll be in the playoffs. I'm still confident we can follow that through. But, we just got to focus on the next game and not get too ahead of ourselves, because maybe Saturday we calmed us down a little bit and put us back in our place a little bit, where we were getting a bit giddy naturally. But yeah, next game, mate.
Yeah, I was thinking about pipping Birmingham to the title just until Saturday, but there we go. Put that behind us. So good evening as well to everyone in the chat. Forgot to say, Dave, first one in there, said he was sat right behind Mannion's goal at the game at Peterborough. Was a bit dumbfounded by the way he misread the back pass, which led to the goal. It's just a mystery that won't go away. But he's in there. He's putting some good questions already. Robert's in there. Gary, Sam. All hell let loose is in there. Alan and Keith as well. Stuart, John, Mickey, Norm. Let us know your thoughts ahead of Saturday. Any questions, like I say, stick them in there. We'll have a bit of a Q&A session at some point today as well, just to see how we're feeling. Right, Huddersfield coming to the Valley on Saturday. Nathan Jones did his pre-match press conference with Tell earlier on today. Starts off by talking about the fitness of the side ahead of the visit of the Terriers.
Today we missed Miles Lieben through I think it was a quad injury. Do we know yet how the extent of Miles's injury?
Well, it's not a matter of days. It's a week's one. So as you said, he won't be available for the weekend, which just gives someone else an opportunity. You know, we've got to manage Miles slightly different to other players in terms of he's young. He's obviously had an injury before, and so we just want to be really careful with him. You know, and we won't rush that.
In terms of other injuries, how close is Josh? I know you said last week he was potential availability. How close is he now?
Well, he's a lot closer than he was a week ago. So he's had some training, and then we'll assess and see how he is.
I think the last one is Daniel Kanu, who injured himself in the under-21s. Do we know how Daniel is?
We just rolled his ankle, so again, it's that one where we can't rush it. We've just got to take our time and make sure that we handle him very well. But look, Daniel won't be as long as he was last time, for example. So that's one good thing.
We've got 8 games to go, and it's cliche, of course, that they're probably all cup finals. That's been surfacing around. 6 of those are coming in a 4-week April burst, so it's going to be a bit of a roller coaster into the season, especially as 3 of the last 8 are against teams that are also in the top 6.
Well, yeah, but you know, if you want to achieve anything, go play everyone, I think this is the stage of season that we wanted to be in and around it, and we are, which is a good thing. You know, this time last year we were in and around the wrong end, and now we're in and around the right end. So any challenge that comes, we'll embrace that, and we're very grateful for the fact of the position we're in. We've had to work really hard over a 6, 7, 8 month period, probably longer. So again, whoever we have to play, we have to play. You have to play everyone twice, home and away. So that's again, we're in the same boat as everyone else.
Yeah, first of those 8 games is Huddersfield at the Valley on Saturday. They're in 6th place as it stands. We have a habit of bouncing back from after a defeat and disappointment. We're 11 games unbeaten at the Valley, so that reaction and resilience will be important, not just Saturday, but going forward for the remaining 8 games.
Oh, absolutely, but we've got to make sure we bounce back. We can't, let anything linger or continue or extend, for example. So it's the toughest of games. They, just changed manager, had a real bounce in the first game. So we know exactly what we're going to come up against, but we like to concentrate on us and what we do well.
Hopefully be a fairly full Valley that'll push you onwards.
Well, look, fans have been outstanding. They've got right behind it. We know we've got real buy-in. What I want to do is give them a performance once again that they can be proud of. And look, with the defeat the other day, real fans would have gone and looked and thought, to be fair, we weren't far off there. We weren't bad. That wasn't a 3-0 like in terms of stuff, but it was 3-0. So we have to make sure that we bounce back, and as I said, they have a big part to play in that, as they have done so often when we've wanted to bounce back with our run at the Valley and in some key games away from home.
That's Nathan looking ahead to Saturday's home game with Huddersfield at the Valley. I mean, let's start with the team news then, Mark. So we heard there, possibly as suspected, the Miles is going to be out for a little while. Obviously, we're never going to know how long that is until he's back, really, because Nathan won't tell us. But he's going to be out for the foreseeable. Dan Kanu is out as well in terms of he rolled his ankle, so hopefully not as long as previously, but will be out. So up front, we're a little bit stretched. Obviously, we still got Matty Godden, Chukwuemeka came on last week. The gas man made an appearance off the bench as well. I mean, how concerned are you about the sort of strength in depth at the moment up top with the names I've just read out?
Well, obviously, they don't want to rush Miles back because of his, at the start of the season, we were waiting. And so I understand their caution with him. Yeah, we've started with Godden TC. If you look at the bench, Hilton, Gas, and Ike, it's not someone, there's no one there who you're thinking, oh, it's okay, because I think he can pick us up a goal. It's difficult. I don't know where to go with that, because I don't know which kind of bench he's going to put out, whether he'll go for, he recently had sort of like the two strikers on there, and obviously he put on Hilton recently over Anike, and I'm just like, okay, there's a bit more experience there with Hilton. I don't mind him being on the bench, and I think he can come on and he can shore, if we're winning, that he can come up and he can shore it up and hold on to it a bit better. Gas, we could surprise us. He could come on, second half, score a hat trick, and sort of like it could be his redemption arc. Do I think that's likely to happen? Possibly not, but stranger things have happened in football. So yeah, the bench is looking a slightly bit weaker without Miles, but again, it's just for the other players to step up and say, right, I'm here, Gaffer. I want to give you a headache for the next game. And I think any pro should be looking to take that as an opportunity and not just go, oh, when he's back. I think Edwards is going to be a miss. I think I've missed him on the left-hand side and putting Small back there. So we shall see Saturday. I don't think it will change it too much because he can't.
Yeah, I mean, how much are these threatening to play a part in between now and the end of the season then, Nath? Because it goes without saying our worst period earlier on in the season, along with a few things being wrong. One of them was player availability, the likes of Jones being out, the likes of Leeburn being out. I mean, how concerned are you that this could play a part between now and the end of the season? Because the thing for me is, like, when you were taking Godden off and you were bringing Miles on, it didn't feel like a drop down in quality. Whereas now, for players' different merits and different things that Anike or the gas man will bring to the side when they come off the bench, it's not the same levels of quality, and these are League One footballers we're talking about. We're not talking about dropping Ronaldinho and bringing in a Park player, but I'm talking about a slight step down compared to what we have had during this good run.
Yeah, I think when you take the likes of DK and Miles out of the bench, and you've got the likes of Chooks and Danny Hilton on the bench, obviously they're good players in their own right. But I think the key for me is that the dynamics of the team changes. So you don't really have, you take TC off and Matty Godden off, you lose agility, you lose pace, and then if you bring those two on, you sort of know which way it's going to go, and the opposition would really go, let's bring another centre half on. They're going long. They're going to throw it all at us and then pick up the pieces in the final third. So it becomes a little bit predictable. Whereas Miles can come short, he can do it with his feet, or he can go in the air, he can go in the channels, he can do that. Whereas that's not Chooks or Danny Hilton's game. So I think that's the problem we're probably going to face with no Miles and no DK and in effect no pace. We've been saying for a while that we don't really have too many players in the attacking part of the pitch where we can stretch defenders when other defenders get leggy. So that's the problem that I think we're going to face, especially when teams can then revert to a sort of a low block, if you like, because then we're literally, no one's going to go in behind us, or they could even go the other way and go, I'll tell you what, then you bring Chooks and Danny Hilton on, we'll shove our defensive line to the halfway line because them two ain't going behind us. So I think the dynamics change a lot without Miles now, and it's a lot easier to defend. But that said, Chooks and Danny Hilton are experienced pros, and on their days they can cause damage. But it is a little bit concerning, but this is what we've got to deal with. This is what we've been lucky with injuries so far this season, and we're going into the business end of the season, and we've just got to deal with it. And hopefully we don't need to worry about that, and we're already winning games 5-0. But who knows? But yeah, that's the only thing that concerns me. But it's not keeping me up late at night and worrying about the week, and put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, Robert says, looking forward to tonight's chat. Hope our players are recovered by Saturday, as some looked a bit jaded against Peterborough. I mean, and then David's asking about Ahadme then. How do our fans feel about Ahadme getting a game, as we're very light on strikers due to injury? So he came off the bench last week. I think that was the first time in ages. Was it the first time he's been involved since before Christmas, maybe in a league squad? I think it might have been when I checked it last week. My memory's not the best this week, unfortunately. But the gas man. I mean, do you see him as a starter in this situation, Mark? I'm guessing more at least as an option off the bench with TC and Godden probably the more likely starters.
Yeah, I think he struggled at the start of the season, but I think the whole team struggled after the first few games, and he was expected to knock it down, and he didn't have a partner next to him. He doesn't hide on a pitch. I mean, he doesn't. Yes, he doesn't score enough goals or way enough goals, but I don't think he's a hider. He's looking for a ball. He's looking to get involved, but it's just not working for him. It hasn't clicked. But we've seen it all season where suddenly it's clicked for players, and there's no reason. I know it seems like late, with like 8 games to go, for it to suddenly click for him. It could do. I wouldn't start him. I'd say it depends if we need to switch to a 3-up front, and I agree with Nathan. There's no pace, so you're going to get the crosses over. Because if Small, Ramsey, Tanai Watson on that side are being held back, it was not. You can't be relying on Gillespie hitting that crossfield ball. It's difficult. It depends what kind of style we need to play. I just think he has something, but he proved it when he scored against us. But he's not a starter. And I just think it just depends what the rest of the team are doing. I know it sounds, it seems a lot to put it all on one man. I know we're talking about Gas, but it just seems a lot to put it all on him to say, could he be the saviour? Well, it's up to 11 of them.
Yeah. So, all right. So, Nath, I'll put this to you. So, Robert says, I think Godden will start, but Hadmay should come on as a sub before Anike on Saturday if he is needed. So, I guess, how the game plays out will play a part in this decision, but it's a straight shootout. We're a goal down, 25 minutes left. Who's coming on out of Chucks and the gas man for you?
I love Chucks, but I'd say Gas. I know that probably I just think the way Huddersfield play, we're going to need height, and I think Chucks is good for bulldozing players, right? We know that he can bulldoze through players, but I think Gas will probably be a little bit more threatening in the box in terms of his movement. I know he's not the quickest, but I think he has better movement off the ball than Chucks does. I think Chucks is more of a not a false 9, but someone who sits a bit deeper and bulldozes, through his power. So I'd like to see Gas get a bit of time if we do go down that road to get crosses in the box. I think that's probably where it's going to be settled. I think it's going to be a tight game personally, but yeah, I would agree with that point. I probably would bring Gas before Chucks. I think Chucks is that cheat code when you're just going, right, let's just try and get something special in a tight game. But I think we need to be a little bit cleverer and just not go, right, just Chucks go and run at people because Huddersfield there ain't no mugs, put it that way.
Yeah, Sam says on a Hadmay, he said Godden and TC are hard to drop, so he'll be on the bench alongside Anike, or I would give Casey a chance. I mean, there's often calls for sort of young players to get a chance, especially when they're scoring hatfuls of goals in the 21s or whatever age level. But I mean, you remember Dan Carney was scoring similar amounts of goals, but the step up is massive. And it's not just in terms of the quality of player you play against, it's the physicality, that sort of thing. It's never as easy as they're scoring loads of goals in the 21s. They'll be fine in the first team, or extremely rarely, we'll put it that way. Even Miles Lieber at the start of his first season, it took him a while to get up to speed, even though he was scoring goals. I think that's a fair point though. Yeah, all hell let loose, and I'm not sure the Gas should start against Huddersfield. I think Sniffer Dog will be more effective with his experience in that game as well. You mentioned Josh Edwards as well. So, I mean, Tanai Watson's coming to the side since he's been out injured, Mark. Is that something you'd stick with? I mean, other people are saying maybe Mitchell into central defence and get Ramsey out onto the right wing and continue with Thierry on the left wing back. I mean, is that something you'd like to do? Do you not want to take Kane out of the middle of the park? Do you think Tanai, did well in his first game, had a bit of a momentary switch off for the goal last week? I mean, which way do you see that one?
Yeah. It's difficult. Obviously, not expecting Edwards to be fit because I think if he was training and out with the boys this week, I think Nathan would have said so in his presser. So not expecting to see him. I don't think he's going to change Small back. And I mean, I know we'd said about, put Mitchell back in and McIntyre on the left a few weeks ago. I just can't see him changing that back 5 stroke, for as it goes. So it's difficult because I think with Gillespie and Lloyd playing centre halves and Ramsey there as well, it's give us, more. Kane's sort of like moved around a lot more now and finds himself in more spaces, and you're hoping Watson has a good game because he's shown he can do it. It's just he has to be consistent. I think that's the reason he hasn't been starting week in, week out, because he hasn't been consistent enough to do that. And I think the last 10 games, we've shown players who have got consistency. I mean, Peter, is one of those ones, but we've shown consistency, and it's difficult now. I think with Watson, he's got to come in and say, right, that was a blip. I'll go back to how I was 2 games ago and be the best player on the pitch. So I can't see it being changed unless someone picks up an injury, tomorrow. So
Isaac says we should put Maka up top. Reminds me of when we put Sarr as a striker at QPR years ago. I think you remember that one quite well, actually, Nath, if I remember rightly. But do you remember we used to do it with Andre BK all the time as well? You knew we were losing if all of a sudden Andre BK was up front for the last 10 minutes, of course, trying to cause a bit of chaos. Stuart says Anike should only come on if we're not winning. If we're 2 up, then he should stay on the bench. Isaac says for all the stick I give Gas. I do think Gas over Chuks, as Chuks has had a lot of chances and hasn't impressed at all this season. Ethan says he must be on a foul bonus now and not a goal bonus. Stuart saying shows you how crucial Josh has become for us, I guess, with the goals last week. Paul saying, I'm just repeating what's been said on previous editions of the pod, but we are playing a system which should suit Gas, but no way should he start for the moment. I mean, that's the only thing. It would be interesting to see now that we're a better team whether Gas would be better, if that makes sense. But then you flip the question and say, well, are we a better team because we aren't playing Gas? Are we a better team because different players came into the squad and we were able to mold the playing style a little bit, and it just worked better with what we had there. I mean, all hell let loose are saying it might be time to put Dixon on the bench. I mean, his name comes up quite a lot, doesn't it, Nathan? But I'm still reluctant. I'm still thinking if Nathan's not seen enough in training to have chucked him in more often by now, then I don't think we're at that stage where he's ready. I think he's off with Jamaica at the moment. I think I'd presumably be back by Saturday, but he got an assist in that game. But yeah, I think if he was ready to affect the team as much as we think he will do in the future now, then we would have seen it by now.
Yeah, he had that little. I know it was only a little bit of an hour or whatever he had again. Was it Leighton Orient in the cup he got, wasn't it? And fair to the lad, he looked like a fish out of water. Like he weren't dead, but it was just like he was just all over the show in terms of his press and his positioning, and that's fine. He's got to get used to it. Like he's come from a Jamaican league to the third tier of English football. We're not playing Man City, granted, but it's it's completely different. So I get what we're trying to think out the box. And, you've got Henry, Ryler and other sort of kids in that age. We've got loads of pace in there that we've tried before, and it's just not worked. I just think at this point of the season, you need the most experience you can possibly have. You need those big pros around. And I know Hilton, we have a joke a bit, now and again, but he'll be so crucial on the bench, in the warm-up, in the dressing room, and that sort of stuff that we need to try and keep it. But I agree with a lot of the points coming through is we're all scrambling now to think, right, if it's 0-0 and TC looks a bit tired, what are we going to do to change the game apart from going the one-dimensional? And that's the thing. And it's interesting what you said about Kane earlier as well, because Kane drives in the pitch, but Huddersfield play quite narrow usually. So then his usual path is going to be blocked off. So I think it's going to be an interesting game, but it's all about getting an early goal like they did against Crawley on Saturday when they got, 3 in the first 15 minutes or something. Because I think we've said it time and time again, if we score first, I'm comfortable we're going to get at least a point. So I just think that's key. And it might be one of those games where we'll just go 1-0 up, go a bit direct, and we'll have to forget the pace for now until we can get the likes of Miles and DK back.
Yeah, I saw a stat over the week on Twitter that I think there's only 2 teams in League One who haven't lost from leading position this season. Obviously us. I think the other one might have been Stevenage or something like that. So yeah, when we go ahead, we tend to stay ahead or at least get a point. Paul saying we need 3 points on Saturday. Dudley saying a win on Saturday would give us some breathing space. It would be very troubling to lose that comfort zone. I guess that's one thing where I've got a little bit, comfortable over the last few weeks is actually, so we're sitting in 4th on 66 points. Huddersfield in 6th, coming to us on 61 points. with a game in hand as well. I mean, if we were to lose, hadn't had to have this conversation very often or think about it this way, but if we were to lose, there is a danger of our reasonably comfortable playoff place looking a little bit less comfortable, Mark. So this game is probably bigger than we realise in that regard.
Yeah, but there doesn't seem to be anyone charging up behind us in a great run of form like we've been in. I mean, we had such a good run to get to where we are now, but there hasn't really. I mean, Orient started their run way too soon in the season, and it's just decided to run us straight out the door. But there's no one, when you look at the results coming through, there's no one who's been climbing over the last 4 or 5 games like we've managed to climb ourselves. So, there's always say there's one team who gets in on a good run, and unless someone's going to really start doing it now, there's not this season. We've timed our run to get where we are, and look, if we scrape in and we're 6th, it means we've got to have the home game first. So be it. I think you deal with that as and when the situation arises. I mean, we've probably surpassed our expectations for this season anyway. So I think most people would have had us possibly mid-table, and after the first 10 games thinking, we're going to be looking over our shoulder. So we've done really well to get where we are. Taking the old cliche bus to the Valley and saying it's taking it one game at a time. It's like Nathan said, it's, you can only deal with what's in front of you. There's going to be teams who aren't going to fancy facing us at all. And I agree. I think if we score first, and with how we know what effect that has on us, that's a real positive. But if they score, we know that, if we can get a draw out of it, it's another point. And at this time of the season, you'd rather have, an ugly point than no points at all. So, I'll take an ugly win, take a very ugly win, but that's the bottom line. It's the result. It's the points at the end. It's not how you're playing. It's not who's doing well. It's the final whistle goes, and we're saying, right, that's another 3 points, and we'll just take it from there.
Back on the Gas man as well. I mean, Ethan's saying lack of goals was a problem early in the season, and Gas played all those games, so I do fear about goals now if Godden has an off game. Keith saying we're going to look to the midfield. They need to be finding the net more regularly. And then Scott Lindsay has taken time out of his return to Crawley to say if we can provide the service in the Gas man could have a decent impact. No excuses in this side. Right, we will look ahead more to Saturday's game with Huddersfield Town in a few moments' time. Let's have a quick break.
PSF Steel Limited is a trade supplier of steel fabrication and erection services to the new build, construction and refurbishment market in southern England. With their unrivaled depth of experience, they excel at providing their customers with high quality and cost-effective steel fabrication solutions. Their customers include national and regional house builders, such as Barratt Homes, Bellway Homes, the Vistry Group and Taylor Wimpey. They pride themselves on their service-based ethos and commitment to customer service excellence, which includes full technical backup and on-site services and support. If you would like more information, go to www.psfsteel.co.uk. That's www.psfsteel.co.uk.
Hello fellow addicts, I'm so excited to tell you all about our micropub, the River Ale House. The River Ale House is based in East Greenwich. It has 6 Pub of the Year awards, an ever-changing selection of amazing beer. It's owned by Charlton fans, walkable to the ground in just 20 minutes with buses that go direct to the Valley too. If your matchday routine includes a drink with your friends, you must join your fellow addicts in the River. See you soon.
Well, welcome back to Charlton Live. This is the big match preview, gearing up for Saturday's home game with Huddersfield Town. 12:30 kickoff. I'm going to keep saying that as often as possible, if only to remind me, really, because I'm really nervous I'm going to turn up late because I forgot it was early until today and could have been a disaster. So, yeah, early kickoff down the Valley on Saturday. Be there or be square. There are 5 people who certainly won't be square because they're going to be there on Saturday. Really looking forward to this as well. 5 of our Nordic players from the Premier League era are going to come and join us. Let's hear from a couple of them very quickly. This is Matti Svensson and Jonathan Johansson speaking ahead of their return to the Valley on Saturday.
A lot of good memories, but I also have a lot of good friends that it would be great to come back and see. Looking forward to it, really. And keep on saying to all the people here in Sweden that I'm meeting, when we're talking about going to England to watch football, always say you should go to a place like the Valley and Charlton because they have so much love and passion for the football. It's obviously a great memory when we got promoted to the Premier League in 2000.
The place has so many special memories for me. Great to see my old teammates as well, the Scandinavian contingency at the Valley. I know the fans have been through a lot over the years since I left, certainly, but good times seems to be coming back slowly, so hopefully we'll have a good result on Saturday and I'll meet up with the fans.
There we go. Just a clip of Jonathan Johansson second, and it was Matty Svensson first up speaking to the club ahead of their return to the Valley on Saturday. I love to reminisce about the good old days, Nath. And you know they were two of the 5 players coming who played massive parts in that Premier League era and sort of around the turn of the millennium and the first decade of this one. I mean, so many good memories. So I mean, I thought maybe if we all just spend a couple of minutes on each player. So I'll go first, Matty Svensson. Weirdly, one memory I have of him is after he'd left us, I met him outside Carrow Road at Norwich, and all I could think to say to him was, "Don't score today." And guess who scored the winner for Norwich about 3 minutes from the end? But you know, he scored some important goals for us. There was part of our side that got promoted as champions as well, obviously. But yeah, scored plenty of goals in the Premier League. And start off with Matty Svensson. You got a favourite goal from him?
Did he score against Palace, or am I imagining something?
He used to play for Palace, so I don't think he scored.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking. I remember he scored a header. I don't know who it was against. Forgive me, I was a lot younger than I am now. But I just remember all of these players, right? There might be listeners out there, I don't know, who are probably at secondary school now. I was at that age and we were like brilliant. So like I actually feel sorry for them because they just like watched us in League One their whole life. But no, yeah, I love reminiscing about these players. As you say, that when we went up as champions was brilliant. And you know what, Svensson was one of them players that gave you absolutely everything, like an absolute warrior. And just to be fair, like every single one of them, but I can't think of one off the top of my head. But there was a header that he scored, and I don't know who it was against.
Middlesbrough, I reckon. I think it might have been his first Premier League goal. I think was against Middlesbrough on his debut.
Might be that
one.
one.
Bench and scored. And yeah, you know, one of the many strikers we had in the Premier League era. Who you know had probably not the best goal return, but not a bad one, and yeah, played a big part up top for us there. Mark, I mean, you pull the very long straw in this one. You get to talk about JJ then, the original JJ, Jonathan Johansson. I mean, what a striker he was for us. And so I'll just share one of my favourite goals he scored, and I think it's one that goes sort of underrated a little bit. It was a game away at Middlesbrough, and he went 1-on-1 with a keeper. It could have been Mark Schwartz, it could have been anyone really, but he sold a little dummy before hitting the shot that sat the keeper down on his backside and then just rolled it into an empty net, and it was so subtle, but it was such a good finish. But when he scored plenty of good goals for us, I remember a brace against Fulham. You know, I mean, obviously the winner against was it Spurs and at the Valley? Must have scored the winner against Arsenal. I mean, that's not a bad little resume from him.
Yeah, I mean, it's quite hard to find a highlight package which doesn't show him. You know, think of a goal. It wasn't an overhead kick for him. It was West Ham. You know, a couple there, and he was an absolute sniffer. I mean, I know we talk about Godden being a sniffer, but JJ was fast. I mean, originally, you know, brought in to be a winger, but it was a case of, you know what, he knows where the goal is. And we talked the other day about strikers who know the goal doesn't move, and he was one of them. His movement, he didn't have to look up. He knew if he could get on the end of something, and he was, like I say, blinded. It's going to sound funny, but over about five yards, he was blindingly quick, so he could be on the shoulder of a defender, and a ball would come across, and he's got his toe on it. And the defender's thinking, hold on a minute, he was next to me. How come he's got that far? But a couple of headers as well. He looked like he was about 8 stone, you know, wringing wet. But he didn't get knocked around too much. That's what I talk about Svensson. Svensson was like the tank. And I'd say JJ was like the stealth fighter, because he was one of those ones where you'd see him and then you wouldn't see him, and then he's popped up and he's on the end of it. So, no, absolutely loved him as a player, and I know he's got a lot of love for Charlton. And he's not the first time he's been back. He's been back since, but you know, it'll be good to see him.
Joe, on that overhead kick you said about West Ham, Mark, I was ball boy that day and I was right in front of it. So I was sitting down just in front of the covered end and he done it there. And when we met him, do you know like where the community hub is now?
Yeah.
At the Valley, like near the ticket office, near the club shop, and you go in there and I remember it was a sign, and when he signed, you could go in and meet him. And I took my little book with his face on it, and I got him to sign it. And I turned around to him and said, "Are you gonna score more than 10 goals this year?" And he actually did. So I reckon I'm part of that. I was part of that routine, mate. So I'm taking credit for that.
I'm glad you gave him the idea because he weren't even dreaming of scoring goals before you mentioned it.
Came in as sub goalie.
Yeah,
really.
Couldn't remember why he was here. Yeah, as Gary said, I think we're going from Rangers. Yeah, good player. And that West Ham 4-4 game. So Norman says. So I mean that was my first game in my season ticket seat in the Northwest. So you remember obviously when we got promoted to the Premier League, the waiting list for season tickets, like we were finally old enough to get season tickets and stuff, and we had to wait for them to build our stands. So we only came in a little way into the season. And my first game in my season ticket seat was the 4-4, and obviously JJ with a last-minute overhead kick. Amazing game of football. Wonderful. Right, who's next on my list? The Herminator. So Mark, the Herman Haridason. Well, actually, I think Nave, you Mark had the last one, Nave. I mean, the Herminator. I mean, if you're looking at goals, obviously there was a couple in there. I think scored against Chelsea in the 4-2. Scored that one against Everton when Duncan disorderly got sent off. He was some player. He wasn't the Herminator. As Paul says, he ran like a steam train.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it was, I was going to say the Chelsea goal. I've done the Charlton Fantasy 11 with Sam Wyatt a couple of months back now, and I've put Herman in it because I think he goes under the radar a little bit. Maybe because he played for Palace as well, but I think again another one, absolute machine. It was just his aggression. Like I love aggressive players. You go into like Parker and Kishishev and all that, but Herman was just one of them. Absolute tank. Always got his head on everything. Gave it his all. Come up with good goals, and just an old school, an old fashioned centre half. Like no nonsense. Don't do none of the fancy stuff with the old flicks and tricks and all that. Just does what he's got to do. Efficient. Ronsil does what it says on the tin. Old Herminator, but. Underrated player, but yeah, buzzing to see him back again, reminiscing of the good days when we were in the Prem playing Chelsea, West Ham, and not the likes of Burton Albion and Mansfield. So if there are any sort of young listeners, just keep dreaming. We'll be there one day, but it's our turn to go back and remember.
I mean, Isaac in the chat, these are all before my time. The only Nordic player I remember is Gudmundsson. I mean, he was all right, but he's no Klaus Jensen, we'll put it that way. So we'll save Klaus for last. So this is a good one as well. Martin Pringle. Now, Bambi on ice, running around. But again, scored some really big goals for us. Our first season in the Prem, scored that second goal away at Derby, which was a massive win for us. We won 2-0. We needed to get that. And he had to run like the length of the pitch. The very best one, though, has got to be the goal against Wimbledon at the Valley, where he kept running and running. And I don't think, at points, I don't think he even had the ball. It was behind him. But it eventually managed to run through the entire Wimbledon defence and slot it beyond Neil Sullivan. I mean, he was a fun player, but he's passionate. I mean, that goal he scored late on against Newcastle when we'd been robbed I think Mark Bright might have had one gone over the line and then it won't get given, but he scored a last-minute equaliser and his celebrations were absolutely mad.
Oh, you've not seen anyone celebrate as hard as him sometimes. And he had like one of those smiles which almost split open his face. And you're right, he had another one who had a knack for being in the right place. You took the Derby goal from me because that was the one I remember of his. But you see a couple of them, and again, he had almost the same thing like JJ had. He had that knack. Unfortunately, after his injury, was never ever the same. But was one of those players. And first of all, when you see him sign for your club, you're thinking, okay, which way is he going to go? But becomes a favourite because, again, it meant something. I know it's going to sound funny because a lot of players will say, kids for badge and whatever. But when you saw how these players would work for each other and they were in good teams. I mean, we had good teams with these players in and they worked they weren't prima donnas, it wasn't allowed and they got the results. And, it's, again, he was another one who was about 8 stone sopping wet and his shirts always looked about 3 sizes too big for him. But he was willing to get stuck in and put his head in, as the boots were flying. And I think that was probably goes not with Klaus, and we were going to come to him, who's not known for his tackling, but with all of them, there was no fear in the way they played. They didn't go out and with nervousness. They went out and they tried. And I think the one thing we've always said about Charlton fans and Charlton players, we have that connection. God loves a trier, and so do Charlton fans. You might not be, the best player in the world, but if you're trying, you're giving everything, and fans see that, they're going to love you for it. I mean, it's not Kish isn't Nordic, but he's a prime example. He gave everything, and once you see players like that in your team, Pringle's like that. So.
Yeah, brilliant. And then finally, so Mark mentioned they're not known for his tackling, so much so that the one time he actually attempted a tackle away at Man City, he accidentally scored a goal from about 50 yards. Klaus Jensen, one of a kind in a Charlton shirt. He was the most skillful player I've ever seen in a Charlton shirt. Bald at the age of about 14, I imagine. He was unbelievable on the ball. Some of his finishing was just absolutely ridiculous. I mean, anyone who's watching the show who wasn't old enough would have seen his goal away at Arsenal, the chip. But I mean, some of the free kicks he scored against West Ham in a 4-2 win, someone mentioned. Even tap-ins he made look simple. So I talked about the one where JJ put a keeper on his backside, but there's one away at Birmingham where I've never seen a player take the ball around the goalkeeper at such a tight angle, but he managed to sit the Birmingham goalie away on his bum away from like the cutest angle and put the ball in. I mean, he was just an unbelievable player, all whilst smoking 40 fags a day, apparently, Nath.
Yeah, loves an eye reefer, not the old wacky backy, just normal tobacco for anyone else, But no, listen, mate. When obviously Sue and Brownie said that they were coming over, I was buzzing because back in the day, I was like a teenager. I used to go to Charlton at like 10:30 in the morning and wait for the players to turn up, and I'd always look forward for Klaus because he didn't say much. But I remember he was unbelievable, and like you say, he just oozed class. Like he managed to glide across the pitch from not putting much effort in. But as Mark said, we had the team and the camaraderie where everyone had to put an extra shift in to cover up Klaus's sort of lack of pressing ability. But that one time he did press against Man City, he'd done a little weldy, which he's done on purpose. I'm still maintaining that. I know he didn't. But yeah, no, honestly, yeah, the the Arsenal goal, the chip was the one that sticks out. But it's hard to explain to someone who hasn't seen him because it just sounds like we're waffling about some random Sunday league footballer, but this player was a baller. And when he left, I was gutted. But yeah, just growing up in secondary school, knowing I had Klaus Jensen, him in that team, I just loved it. So I'm absolutely buzzing. So I don't know if he's still. I think he's the director of football at a Swedish club somewhere. I think. Well, he was. I don't know if he still is or an owner, but yeah, buzzing. I can't wait to see him. Hopefully, we can do 10 minutes or something. If TC gets tired, we'll shove Klaus on. That'll be that'll be. Joe, you know what? Sod it. Bring all 5 of them on. That'll be an experience, wouldn't it?
I'm not sure Klaus quite fits into the high intensity game that Nathan Jones sort of demands from his players. But yeah, forgive us our little 10 minutes there of reminiscing. But fair play to Brownie and to Kevin Lisby with the former Players Association, and obviously our very own Sue, who's been helping them sort stuff out as well to get these 5 players back. The meeting the 4 managers they had a few weeks ago. I mean, they're doing some absolutely brilliant stuff, and it's put a massive smile on my face reminiscing about those players. And forgive me for anyone who was too young, like Isaac. To remember, he says, so were these players better than Gas? I mean, that's the great thing. The great thing about nostalgia, Isaac, and anyone else who was too young, is in 20 years' time, you'll be speaking about the Gas man in these terms, and you'll be smiling and remembering, what Jordan Cousins did for us and all these sort of players. Freddie Olverstad will be your one, mate. You'll be thinking about these players in 20 years' time with a smile on your face, because those 5 players were just 5 of some of the best football I've ever got to see Charlton playing, and we were a good team. Oh, it hurts remembering, but we were a very good team in the Premier League, and very proud to have watched that team. Let's refocus on League One now, unfortunately. But yeah, big game on Saturday. We do have a Huddersfield guest. He's not live. I spoke to Steve during the week So this is Steve Downs from the West Yorkshire Football Show, looking ahead to Saturday's home game with Huddersfield from a Terriers point of view. Now on Charlton Live by Steve Downs from the West Yorkshire Football Show, Huddersfield Town supporter. Steve, good to have you with us. How would you sum up Huddersfield Town's season so far?
Well, thanks very much for having me on the show, mate, as ever, and thanks for Sue dropping in on the show the other night. How do I sum up Huddersfield Town so far? A roller coaster of a ride as usual, my friend. Ups, downs, sideways, loop-de-loops, everything going on. And that's just on the pitch, never mind off the pitch. It's been a weird season, really. Started well, then we had a dip, then we got knocked out of the FA Cup by a load of plumbers. Then we went on a 16-game unbeaten run. Where, we thought we were getting somewhere, and then we decided to go on a bad run and now sack as manager. So we've ended up with the academy manager, a bit of a legend in charge, and beat Crawley 5-1 recently in the last game.
Yeah, I mean, that was your last game before the international break. Probably you're pleased to be able to get off the roller coaster for a few days. But yeah, I mean, talk to us about the decision to let Michael Duff go. Obviously, John Worthington, as you said, has come in to take over until the end of the season. Michael Duff, decent manager, it seems, at this level. Were you surprised to see him go?
I personally didn't want to see him go. I didn't feel it was the progressive long-term right decision. With John Worthy in charge, you're going to get a short-term bit of a boost to the playoff hopes. But yeah, I kind of was, and I wasn't surprised. The nature of the results, let's be absolutely honest. We've had some decent scorelines this season in terms of like beating Cambridge and Bolton away and such, but we never had a total real performance that showed why we should be sort of up there. And I think that's been one of the biggest frustrations, and the fact that we've had so many injuries again, and the formation didn't really work, and that was his major thing. He was very stubborn like that. But I think there's some other factors about why it probably didn't work for Duff, and I think most Town fans were a bit sad that it ended for him. But the club made the decision, and they didn't think that we would, end up getting in the playoffs with him in charge.
Was it the right decision in your mind then? What was it that wasn't going right on the pitch? It was four defeats in 5 before the game against Crawley, just before the international break. What was going wrong?
I think it was more the fact that, even if we were scraping through games, we were we didn't really deserve to win them. And like I said, 4 defeats from 5. I mean, some of the nature of the performances, you go particularly to the 2 games against Northampton, terrible performances. Bristol Rovers, I mean, they were sat at the time 5th from bottom in the table, just above the relegation zone. And we didn't lay a finger on them. I mean, if you're wanting to get promoted from this league, you need to be going and beating teams. No disrespect to Bristol Rovers, but there is a reason why they're down there. And I think maybe the players I don't think he'd lost the dressing room totally, but I think there was getting to the stage where probably something had to give. Unfortunately, as usual in football, it's the manager that pays the price. But realistically, it's the players now that have got rid of a few managers at the football club, and that's more sad than anything else, really.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned off-field stuff as well. Can you just give us an overview of what's been going on with Huddersfield? Obviously, getting relegated last season is probably just scratching the surface, I guess.
Yeah, that was the tip of the iceberg, mate, to be absolutely honest. Obviously, we've seen, this is Wrexham, and the upward curve they've gone. Well, we've gone the other way, as it were, with our American owner. He's looking to buy the stadium. That's still ongoing. The current rugby league team, I know it's not your code down there, but the current rugby league team has decided to move stadiums now, which affects sort of the deal happening with them. And it's kind of all over the place. And we've just announced season tickets And for some supporters, there's going to be an 87% increase on their season ticket price. So just to explain a little bit to your viewers, we for the last 6 seasons, the season ticket prices have been frozen or very gradually increased, but not by a lot. That's gone to £249 from last season now. I know a lot of Charlton fans will probably think that's low, but you have to remember Huddersfield is surrounded by sheep. We don't have a large sort of wage inflation here like you guys do in London. 29 grand is the basic wage here for people, the average wage, compared to 53 grand in London. And so, the hiking increases. I mean, I'll say from my perspective, my season ticket last season was £249. This next season, it's going to be £419. It's a massive increase. I mean, and one of the worst things with this is that the kids' prices, depending on what category you're in for your age group, you could be looking at most as 178% increase on your season ticket price. So that's kind of the big topic at this moment in time, getting everybody's sort of gears up with only one payday able to decide whether you're renewing. You've only got 5 weeks to decide whether you're going to buy a ticket, and then if you don't, it goes to general sale and the prices get whacked up even higher, presumably, because why would they lower them in a general sale?
Yeah. And then so just looking ahead to the rest of the season then, so obviously Worthy's coming, then bit of a town legend by the sounds of it. What do you expect from him? Were you surprised he got given it? When I saw that Michael Duff was given the elbow, weirdly it was when we were live on air on one of our shows and we were reacting to it live. And I thought it would be interesting to see if they get some sort of proven manager in who can get them back on track before the end of the season. Then we realised you've got in someone who doesn't seem to have managed first-team football a great deal before, or if at all. So what are you expecting from him?
Yeah, so basically, just as a bit of background, Worthy played for us in our 2014, got promoted from what was then Division 2 to League 1. And, he's been at the club for a long time. Made over countless hundreds of appearances for the football club, lives in the area, born in the area, the family's from the area, all his family are Town fans. So, it's a massive thing for him to be interim charge of us. He was interim basically before Duff came at the end of last season. And he did all right. He won his first game 4-0 against Sheffield. Well, he does all right in his first games, seemingly. But he only had 4 games in charge last time. He's got 10 games definitely in charge this time. They are leaving him till the end of the season. I'm not surprised they've done that. Who else is out there really that you're going to get to come in for 10 games? Not a lot. I think that's part of the reason why people were perplexed at the timing. You've gone for Duff all season. Why are you sacking him with 10 games to go in what you're hoping to still be a promotion push? And that's why I said that Worthy will, have that initial sort of bang effect. It proved the case at Crawley, but I think me and you could have prayed, to be honest, against Crawley. No disrespect to that football club, but they were terrible. I'm definitely expecting a bit more of a tougher test against you guys. He plays 4-3-3. Or 4-2-3-1, my favourite formation of football, by the way, from the Duff formation of 5-3-2 or 3-5-2. So it's a lot different, and it's just putting sort of players in the positions where they're going to be most dangerous, and actually having a system in place which suits the players. And I think that's kind of what Worthy's football is. It's basic. It's get up and at them. You're playing for the shirt. You need to run for the shirt and die for the shirt, and they're kind of the minimum expectations really for the players now, and hopefully we can go on and snatch a playoff spot. But I'm expecting a tough test against the angry man on Saturday. I'm not gonna lie.
He has been an angry man at times. So he's a bit calmer at the moment because obviously we're doing well. I'm just finally then you mentioned you need some players to step up. I mean, who are the most likely to do that this weekend against us? And also, just to roll both questions into one, do you think you will hit the playoffs? Obviously, well placed like we are at the moment to do so.
So the players really to watch out for is Ruben Ruskins, come over from the Dutch division. Played on the left wing on Saturday against Crawley. He's got a great left foot. lovely set piece taker on a corner. Got sent off 5 minutes into his debut, actually, in January, which was gutting for the lad, because he obviously come on, ran round for 5 minutes like an absolute madman, and then put a bad challenge in. But yeah, Ruben Ruskins is one to mention. Joe Taylor, of course, we bought for $3 million. And, you know, he's got off to his goal scoring at home now against Crawley. So hopefully, you know, with the more minutes he has in his legs, had a little bit of an injury when he first came in. He should be one to watch. Ben Wiles, obviously, in the midfield, likes to control things. You know, does play well at times and can really control the midfield. And Matty Pearson at the back, you know, absolute colossus, really. The Keithley Cannavaro, as we call him up here, he goes in for headers. He's a very old school Terry Butcher type, you know, blood coming out of his head. All he wants to do is head the ball and kick the ball and not really pass it or anything. But he's great for what he is. Blood and thunder and proper passionate lad. So, yeah, they're the four, I would say. Do I think we're going to make the playoffs? Well, that is the big question, isn't it? I'm a bit, you know, not happy with you guys coming up on the rails, to be honest. You could have just stuck down in 12th like you were when we last played you. Yeah, I think, listen, it's going to be tight, innit? It's going to be between, you know, us, Stockport, who else is there? Reading, although they've had a bit of a bad time recently, haven't they? You know, Wickham still, I think they could still drop off. Bolton, of course, with Schumacher now. That's a great appointment for them. So I really don't know if Worthy can pull it off. It'd be some pull off for us, to be honest. But you know, yeah, I'll say yeah, but I really don't want it to be us and you in the final, because I like Charlton. I do. I like you as a football club. I do like you as a fan base, because you've had crap like us for so many years. But it's yeah. I also like the fact that I keep saying that we're a bigger football club than you, but there we go. That's one for your fans to go in the comments and go, oh, what's he on about? What's he on about? So hopefully that gives you a bit of a clip up there.
I don't think Huddersfield are a bigger football club than us, Nathan. Do you?
Who?
It was brilliant.
No.
It was brilliant, Steve, wasn't he? Really spoke well about his club. But yeah, big game for us Saturday. They have just turned a corner because they've won one game. Maybe that's being a bit generous, but they've changed managers. It's an unusual time to be playing a side. An unusual manager they've got in caretaker charge for you know what is still a playoff push as well.
Yeah, I mean it's going to be a test. I mean they've made the most shots out of anyone in the league. After they had 40% of their goals are set plays, so it's going to be interesting with that. They actually underperformed their XG by 10, so they're in the bottom 3 on XG performance. Done on my research earlier, if you didn't notice. So yeah, I think it's be a tight game, and I just think it's one that if we don't lose, I'll be happy. I'm not saying I'll take a draw now, but I won't be despondent if we do draw. But I'm just worried of Bolton. I know we ain't playing Bolton, but I'd rather have Huddersfield and players than Bolton, because Bolton are the only team I'm afraid of anyone in that top 6 at the moment. But yeah, it's going to be a tricky game. It's going to be a physical game, and as you say, they got a new manager. They're playing a different way. They're not playing 5 at the back anymore, so it's just going to be interesting, really. And we've got sort of in the final third, we discussed earlier, it's going to be interesting how we can try and change the dynamic if we have to. But yeah, it's going to be a tough game. But as Nathan Jones said in his presser, like, if we're going to do anything, we're going to have to play these teams and beat these teams if we're going to do anything next year and beyond.
Yeah, Ethan says, be fair, Louis, they have got Freddie Ladapo. Well, we will only joke about Freddie Ladapo after the game, just because if we do it beforehand, we would invite him to score. But he didn't quite have the half a season with us he was hoping for. Mark, I mean, Saturday's game, Nathan said a point won't be the end of the world. I think I probably agree with that. But yeah, I must not lose, put it that way.
Yeah, I think that puts too much pressure on yourself when you say it like that. I agree. You know, a point is exactly what it is. And as I said right at the beginning of the show, I would take a very ugly win. Scrappy, fighting, but showing spirit. So that's the best we can hope for, I think.
Lovely stuff. Right, thanks to everyone who's joined us this week for the big match preview. We've run out of time. Thanks for all your wishes during the week. Obviously, we had a bit of disappointment with the car being stolen, but I can report that we've got it back. I'll tell you the story. I mean, you can imagine me going up to the car. There was a gang of blokes there. I beat them all. No, the police found it, and I just went and picked it up. But yeah, thanks for all your concern. We managed to get that back. So cheers for everyone who expressed concern during the week. Massive thanks for everyone who's joined us live this evening in the chat. Big thanks to Steve as well from the West Yorkshire Football Show as well. Really enjoyed his look ahead to the game. Mark and Nathan, been an absolute pleasure as per always.
You're more than welcome.
Cheers, lads. Cheers to the Huddersfield fan. Who's a much bigger club than ours.
Lovely stuff. Right, this has been Charlton Live. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I think we're getting nearer to the 2,000 subscription. I think, and where you get your pods as well. So you never. Isaac's going off to Google some of these ex-players, or you're never going to want to watch the current team again. Unfortunately, Isaac, if you see how good we have been in the olden days. But yeah, enjoy that. Search Klaus Jensen goal away at Man City if you want to see the art of tackling turned into goal scoring. It's one of the most bizarre goals. It made What Happened Next. You're gonna have to Google this as well now. What Happened Next on A Question of Sport, which was a TV show we used to have when we were younger. But they cut the clip off, and you'd have to guess what happened next, and no one would have guessed what would have happened next was there. Because it was Klaus Jensen making a tackle. But yeah, check that out as well. Yeah, subscribe, all that sort of stuff. We'll be back on Sunday morning to look back at whatever happens against Huddersfield. We'll look ahead to the game at Mansfield next Tuesday as well. But thanks for listening. I'm Louis Mendes. This has been Charlton Live, sponsored by PSF Steel Limited. We shall see you again on Sunday morning.
Charlton Live.